2025 PBA season has come to an end, so let's do a little breakdown, summary, and what I kind of thought about my season, what I experienced on tour this year. So first of all, some cold hard facts. I ended up 38th in points this year. Assuming what they're saying with the top 40 being the exempt number, means I should be exempt for the 2026 season, which is cool. Not a lot of details about next year yet, but hopefully that means something good. So going into this year, my last two seasons have been weird. Like 2 years ago, I was bowling really well, bowled the first couple of events, did well, made a show at the US Open, and then had to cut the season short due to the birth of my son Milton. So no regrets there, but I was bowling really well there. Then going into last year, I thought I was throwing the ball pretty well to start the year. Got off to a decent start, then broke my finger. And that kind of hurt my chances for the rest of the season. Missed about a month, 4 or 5 weeks due to the broken finger. And when I came back, I wasn't sharp. I was just dealing with physical issues, which honestly took me longer than I thought it would to work out. So last year was really bad. Not much to say. So obviously, a lot better this year, but going into this year, I wasn't really sure where I was going to be at. I felt like I was throwing the ball better, worked out some things. I had some different ideas on ball choices, layouts, lane play, all of these things. And basically was in a spot where I wasn't really chasing the high rev rate. I was just kind of trying to do my thing and throw a lot of good shots, stay in the right frame of mind, and hopefully that would bring some good results with it. So we start the season, and it didn't start well. Like, it's really hard when you're practicing, you're bowling at home, and you feel like, all right, this is okay, I'm doing the right things, this should be good. And you go out on tour, and the environment's different, the pressure's different, the field's different, the lanes break down different. All of a sudden, all the things you've been working on, even though you thought you were working on some of the right things, turns out they weren't. So now you have to make a lot of changes on the fly. So basically, what I learned was going through the first couple of tournaments was I wasn't repeating shots good enough. My hand was in a bad spot, too much on the side of it, and too weak of a pit position. I was trying to do too much to the ball, even though I wasn't trying to get my rev rate high. I was still just trying to do too much with the ball subconsciously, which just made it really hard for me to control my ball reaction, and it made it hard for me to repeat as well as you have to out on tour. So the first 3 or 4 tournaments were really bad. Just couldn't get the ball to do the right things, and I tried a lot of different things. You can go back and watch some of my videos where I talk about it. I test some different layouts, some weird, like weak mass bias layouts to just give me more control. And as it turns out, what I needed was to get my hand in a different spot, change a couple things physically, and all of a sudden I started seeing that front to back motion a lot more consistently and a lot more controllable. So basically what I started to work on after like 3 or 4 weeks were I changed my setup position a little bit, went from having my hand a little bit more on the side of the ball to more up the back like I used to like years ago, and just really tried to feel like I was rolling the ball, keeping my hand behind the ball. This also, why I went away from that originally was because having my hand in this position when I start kind of gets my hand to rotate and sometimes over rotate at the back of my swing. So rather than me being like this at the top of the swing, I would get like here, which would then cause me some inconsistencies and some issues with my feel and my thumb when I go through the swing and get into the release. So I worked on that, and that got a lot better. But obviously now it started to go the other way, where it put my hand in a not very good position. So now I have to change it again. So I went back to having my hand more like this, and just basically I wasn't worried about what was happening in my backswing, and got my hand more up the back of it, got my ball rolling more forward. It became more predictable, and all of a sudden I could play straighter. I had a better feel of what my hand was actually doing, what was happening, and probably also fixed a couple things with my swing, because it definitely started hitting my target more often and being more consistent. So all in all, it improved my game a whole lot. First time I kind of saw that was when we were in Chicago for the Illinois Open doubles. My last couple blocks were much better physically and much better ball motion wise. So I started to see some improvement there. Worked on kept working on those things. We came to a regional in Missouri. I bowled pretty well, and I could actually play straight. That was one of my issues. I had a really hard time playing straight because my ball would just go sideways on the back end, which is not a very good sign for me. If I can't play straight, something's wrong, because I'm not going to beat everyone else hooking the ball, playing fourth arrow right from the start. That's not the way I'm going to win. So I was able to play straight. I had a really nice look there. I balled pretty well, and it was a nice confidence booster. I think I ended up finishing, I don't even remember, 6th, 7th, which was just a nice confidence booster. And you can go back and watch my video where I talk about that regional a little bit more. But it kind of got my confidence up a bit. I knew I was working on the right things, and it just put me in a better frame of mind mentally. So then we go to Springfield, Missouri, and we bowl there, and I managed to, even on a pattern where I had to do something that's pretty unnatural for me, I had to loft the ball. I lofted for the majority of qualifying, and I still ended up cashing, almost made it to match play. That was a big confidence booster again, because I could see and change and do the right things on the lanes, even if it required me to do a lot of different things with my hand and to get the ball to do the right things. I could do it, and I could compete. In the past couple years, if I didn't get the ball to do the right thing, if I had to really manipulate it to get it to do the right thing, I was towards the bottom of the standings. I just couldn't manipulate it and repeat well enough to be competitive. All of a sudden I could manipulate it, and I create something where I was competitive. I might not have been competitive to win the tournament, but I got into that level where at least you're making some money, which is kind of the most important thing. So that was kind of the first part of the season, and really trending in the right direction. But obviously I think I was in like 65th, 70th on the points list at that point, after, I don't know, a third, maybe half of the events. Yeah, probably somewhere in between there. So obviously not a good start to the season, but really feeling like I was trending in the right direction. And then we go to Reno, which I have a lot of confidence in bowling at the stadium. We start out in a different place, and in a different place in Reno, and I bowled really well. And I end up finishing 13th, actually was able to strike with urethane too, both urethane and reactive. And all of a sudden, this is kind of like, all right, things are starting to happen. I'm starting to see the right things. I'm making the right moves, and the results are following. It's not, I feel like I'm doing well and I'm finishing 47th. No, you're doing the right things, and all of a sudden I'm competing, and even like in one of the blocks, I was like one of the best guys out there. So it's not just competing, it's actually being at a top level. We go into Reno for the World Series, ends up being another really good tournament. Made 2 match plays and made match play finishing 13th in the World Championship. So another good tournament. which was just great. So so a lot of confidence there, really booming up the point standings and just making some money and feeling like I belong and I'm good enough to be there and I'm good enough to make a show and potentially win again, which was a feeling that was kind of lost. So you can get down in a pretty bad spiral downwards confidence-wise when you're bowling bad, and you get confused, and all of a sudden I was seeing things a lot clearer and just feeling like I knew what I was doing, and what I was doing was also competitive. So that was nice. Last part of the season was the 3 majors: USBC Masters, the Players Championship, and the TOC. And those 3 were not bad, but kind of in the same way for all 3, and kind of sucked for me because I started out, actually for a lot of the tournaments, I had started off slow and then managed to make my way up to a decent finish. These 3 actually started out pretty decent, and then the last day just struggled, mixture between being nervous and uncomfortable. I don't know if anxiety is the right word, but anxious, tense, and the lane's just playing different. So I had to find different solutions, a little slow to find that, through some bad shots due to being nervous and uncomfortable, and it ended up costing me match play at the Masters, it ended up costing me cashing at the Players, and match play at the TOC. So a little bit of a downer way to end the year, but I still managed to cash in 2 of the last 3 majors, bowl pretty good, showed that I could be there to myself too. If I worked through a couple of those recognition issues and seeing that different on the last day a little bit quicker, making the adjustments a little bit quicker, and I worked through a couple of those mental issues, so to speak, I would be right up there in those tournaments too. So that's a good feeling to go with, and that's really something very, very positive that I take with me from this year. Obviously also some things to work on, but overall very positive. And I would say let's start with the positives of the season. Like, coming off of the last 2 seasons, this felt like a big step forward. Obviously you don't want to be 38th in points. You want to be top, as high as you can be, but you want to be the top 10, top 20. Those are the guys that are making some money and where you're in the hunt for making shows and winning titles and consistently bowling well week out and week in. And I feel like through the last half of the season, I was bowling well every week, every event. I just didn't have that high finish, which probably also, like, had I that's probably what I kind of was missing to get higher up in points. I needed that top 8 in a major, a show, whatever it might be, where I was very consistent and bowling well. I just never got to that little extra step. Missed a couple of opportunities and just had a few things that didn't go my way for that not to happen. But big step in the right direction, big step forward in ball motion wise in the right direction, big step forward physically in the right direction, and a big step forward mentally. Even though I talked about some of the mental issues, it was still a really big step forward in controlling some of that mental nervous energy and performing in spite of it. So that was really, really good. Couple things that was different this year on tour, I would say. Patterns had a lot more oil, and we only used Kegel machines, Kegel products this year, which I think benefited me because I felt like the lanes almost like they hooked more, but it was because they hooked more down lane. So it felt like the ball got through the first part of the lane a little bit easier. They still hooked pretty early, I thought, for having like 35 mils of oil on every pattern, but they just hooked so much down lane. They never got tight down lane for like I don't really feel like we had any tournaments where they were tight down lane, so it became a lot more of an issue of controlling the ball down lane for me, rather than having to make it hook down lane, which it's a lot easier for me to get to create control with my hand when it's in a good position and with my ball choices than it is trying to get it to hook and continue more down lane. That's a lot trickier. It requires me to manipulate the ball a lot more. So it allowed me to bowl a little more free and see my ball do the right things a little more easily. But the lanes did hook a lot. I felt like we had a lot of tournaments where especially the fresh hooked a lot, and they broke down and hooked a lot. But most of it was further down lane than it had been in the past years, where it felt like it was a little tight down lane and the ball really wanted to burn up. But if you got it through that spot where it burned up, it still wouldn't quite hook down lane. So that's been my issue for the past couple of years, and that really changed this year. I felt like so that was, hopefully we keep seeing that kind of progression, and it'll allow me to be even better next year. There's some of the outside of my control kind of things that I felt like was different, and where I don't know if it helped me, but at least it made it easier for me to figure out. I'd say another really positive thing was I got a lot better at figuring out how to make good shots, focusing on a few things to make better shots and make consistently better shots over and over and over again, no matter if I was trying to do one thing or the other. So that was also really, really good. That also goes back to getting my hand in a better spot, making it a little bit simpler for me to not have to manipulate my swing and my hand a whole lot, and could just kind of focus on throwing the ball well and a couple things that would allow me to throw a lot of good shots. That was kind of the physical part. I would say one thing that kind of challenged me and I think hurt me in the last couple of events, when I talked about the last couple blocks being a little tricky, I think because of how tight they've been down lane the last couple of years, I've gotten used to throwing the ball slower and slower, and all of a sudden I needed to throw the ball firmer. And I think going back, I would probably just have upped my speed in those last couple of events by maybe like a mile, and I think I would have been a lot better off not having been forced so far left with angles so open, and just being able to use speed to get the ball to the right spot on the lane a little bit more. And I wish I would have looked back at that and kind of did that, because it's not like I can't throw it harder. I think it just, when you don't see your ball hook, you just start throwing it slower and slower. And it worked in Reno. In Reno, I had to throw it slower on a lot of the patterns, and it gave me a really good look. But then going into the last tournament, I think I needed to up my speed. And I did feel like I upped my speed. I just feel like I was probably at a level where like my normal speed was, or what felt like normal has gotten lower than what my normal used to be. So now when I up it, I only get up to, I feel like I'm throwing it faster, but I'm actually not throwing it super fast compared to what I could be. So that's a little bit of a thing I'm going to work on, getting my speed a little bit higher. I think that's going to help me, especially if we see this amount of hook from now on. Mentally, a lot of good things. I've been struggling with a little bit of, obviously when you're bowling bad, confidence issues. Gotten really nervous at some weird spots, like nervous, anxiety. I don't know what exactly is the right term, tense, but where you're uncomfortable and you don't really have control of what you're doing. And sometimes it's taking me a couple shots to get through it. Other times it's taking me a game or maybe even 2 games to get through it. But where it's just a little bit tricky for me to work through something like that. And but this year I came in, I knew the situation, I knew what situation I was going to be in mentally. I knew it was going to happen, and I accepted that it was going to happen. And I just kind of tried to work through it. And especially at the World Series, I did a really, really good job at working through it, and dealing with that, and not, obviously it affects your performance. I threw some bad shots at some times where I didn't want to throw a bad shot, but where it just became a little bit overwhelming and I didn't handle it well enough. But in general, I handled it really, really well compared to the last couple of years. A lot of breathing, focusing on some different things, and taking a little extra time to be ready, and telling myself, accepting that this is how I feel, and then knowing, okay, when you're feeling like this, you have to remember to do these things. So almost like, if I know that I get a little tense, and then maybe I start walking a little faster, I have to remember to slow down my first couple steps when I'm like that. And that's okay, it happens for everyone. And right now I just feel like I'm in a situation where sometimes, it's not all the time, sometimes it just happens a little bit more for me than it used to. And I'm just trying to work through it. And it felt like this year I was, for a larger part of the season, I was able to do that. I also had times where I wasn't able to deal with it probably, but I learned a lot about how I should deal with it. And I'm going to take that going forward and really use that to hopefully eliminate some of these situations, and the situations where I can't eliminate it, really handle it better, so I'm able to throw better shots in those situations, and at the very least give my ball a chance in those situations. You're not asking, like when you're nervous and you're uncomfortable, you shouldn't be expecting yourself to throw it perfect. You just have to throw it good enough to give it a chance. That's the goal. If you can do that, most of the time it's gonna end up okay. So that was a lot of the positives, and felt like I'm kind of back, and even though I don't have a 500 rev rate, I can still compete. I can see myself making a show. I could have made a show this year, had a couple things gone a little bit different, had a couple shots I could have thrown a little bit different, and a couple of decisions here and there. I could have made a show. So yeah, I really feel like this was a really good, consistent year bowling wise, where if a few things is different, I get rewarded for that a whole lot more, with a lot more points, higher positions, and a lot more money, prize money. So really positive about it. If we're going to talk a little bit about the negatives, or well, one more positive actually. I did a really good job at trusting myself with ball changes, and where in the last couple of years I've been a little afraid of changing balls. I've tried to manipulate it, and the thing I've learned in the last 2 or 3 years out on the PBA Tour, if my ball is not doing the right thing, it doesn't have to be perfect, but if it's not looking quite right, the chances of me bowling even just a decent game is really, really low. If I feel like my ball, or if my ball is looking like it doesn't really want to carry, I'm not gonna magically pull out a 230 in a 5-bagger or something. I'm not gonna get the messenger or late trip of something or whatever to get that going. No, I'm gonna get 9. I'm gonna leave a 7-10, like whatever it might be, and I'm gonna shoot a fairly bad game, and that's just how it is. So if I see my ball doing that, I have to do something different, and most of the time that's a ball change. And I did a really good job this year with not being afraid of ball changes, and really going aggressive on that. If I felt like this ball isn't right, even if I talked to my ball rep sometimes, where it was like, I think it's okay, you can kind of manipulate it, and I listened to them, but there was times where I was also, well, I gotta change. I don't feel comfortable with that, and it's really important when, like, for all of us when we're bowling, no matter the level, that we're comfortable and we believe in what we're doing. So if you're throwing a ball and you don't feel like you believe in that ball being the right ball, you have to make a change. And I did a really good job with that, and it rewarded me because I had a lot of games where, had I stayed with what I was doing, I could have got shot 170, 180, but I made the change, and a lot of the times I got rewarded with actually turning those potential 170 games into a 220 or a 230 or even better game, because I got into the right ball, or a more right ball at least, and I got back to hitting the party, got back to striking, put up doubles, triples, five backers to salvage those games. And when you make a 40, 50, 60 pin swing in one game, that changes everything. That's the difference between being outside of the cash number to being in the cash number to being stuck in the middle of the field and not being able to go anywhere to making match play. Like, that's the big difference, and I did a lot better job of that. I can still get better, obviously, but I did a lot better with that this year, and that's really something I applaud myself for. That's also helped by the ball reps, obviously, having their help to seeing what's happening on the lanes and kind of telling me, hey, I think you're close, or I think you need to get out of that and get into whatever, and making the decision of what to go into. That's one of the hard things, really knowing your arsenal, with not bowling on the like with the season being that short, you're not seeing the balls in that environment a whole lot, so it's really hard to know your arsenal super well. But you also need the new balls in there to get the best performance. So it does become, sometimes you make the wrong guess just simply because you're like, and then you talk to someone afterwards and, oh, okay, that makes sense why I thought that ball would work, but in reality it didn't, because I thought it was like this, but in reality it's a little more like this, and what I should have done was probably go to something like this ball instead, and that would have worked better. And yeah, it's just, sometimes you can't, you gotta know your arsenal, but it's also really unlikely that you're gonna know it perfectly when you only have a few months of bowling on tour, bowling in that environment to really test it out. And some of the balls you only throw for a couple games during the entire season, just because of where they fit in your arsenal or what you're bowling on. So making the right ball choices was a lot better this year, big step forward, but also a really tricky thing. And I'm gonna think about how I can make that easier next year. If we're talking about the bad things, well, let's talk ball choices. I made some bad ball choices once in a while, simply because I thought a ball was fitting my arsenal a certain spot, and it turned out it was actually a little bit different than that. Maybe because of the way and that's the hard thing, like if you throw it in practice or in league or whatever, it might do this, but then when you come out on tour, it's going to do something that's a little bit different. And I probably got tricked by that a couple times. I think we all do. But that was kind of sucky part, because you always wish you could go back and throw a different ball, and things would probably have worked out a little bit different. But that's what it is. I don't have a lot of bad things, but one of the things I looked at was, I have a lot of shots where I miss left. Not saying that all my misses are left, but the big issue for me is missing left, and that's something I'm going to address here going into next year. Trying to work on some things physically that'll allow me to get my ball going right a little bit easier. I think it's some of the rotation in my upper body, and then when I get a little nervous or a little tense, that gets over exaggerated, forces me to pull the ball basically. And I'm gonna work on a few things. First couple of things I've figured out is kind of one of my steps, changing that a little bit, and my left arm, so my shoulders are in a little different spot, and that feels like that helps with getting my ball going towards my target a little easier and kind of minimizing some of those misses to the inside of my target. So that was a frustrating part of this year, where I felt like all of a sudden I would just miss left. And a lot of times, like, miss left is often one of the worst things you can do, because if you miss a little right, hopefully you'll still get back to the puck and you hit light, you have a chance of striking. But when you miss left, if you go through the face, you basically have no chance of striking. If you go light, you still have a chance of something happening. So I need to work on that, kind of minimize those misses. They're never going to go away. It's one of my tendencies in my game, but minimize them and make it so they don't affect my results that much. And hopefully I can figure that out. I'm going to work on pretty hard on that and getting that in line. Obviously, another of the bad things was the mental struggles at times. But I already talked about those. Like, it's just get nervous, and I think some of it also stems from just having bad results, where you kind of start doubting yourself. Then when you get in a position where you can make something good, you get nervous because you really, really want it, and then you tense up, and probably haven't been in a lot of those situations in the last couple of years. So just need to figure out how to work through that. And I found some things that really helped me in those situations. Now I just have to implement them better and probably get to the next step of those things. I'm sure there's more things I can do. So maybe talk to a sports psychologist, a couple coaches, and just implement some things that'll help me in those situations so I can handle that better, and hopefully even avoid that it gets too high up in tension, that maybe I can keep it a little bit lower and make it easier to handle that way too. So that was kind of the bad parts. Looking into next year, we don't know a lot about next year. I'm just gonna try to do my best at getting and working on the things I learned that worked this year. Seeing some of the things, I'm gonna work on my speed control and getting my speed a little bit higher. Again, gonna keep working on getting my hand in a really good position, changing my roll, going even more up the back of it, and kind of working on those things, and working on the mental things, and trying to just get more consistent with my bowling, minimizing some of the misses, especially the miss left, and getting more consistent with those. And then obviously with the mental part, working on that, working through that, gonna try to experiment with some things and really try to work hard on that when I go bowl tournaments and bowl whatever. And then obviously trying to get in better shape, running, going to the gym, getting stronger, getting in better shape, and just hopefully that also attributes to my game being stronger, my game being better, and so that's kind of the plan for next few years. Probably also going to experiment a little bit with some layouts and stuff, but that's really hard to know until we get on tour. Sorry about that. What is actually needed in that particular year. So maybe next year we need weaker layouts, maybe next year we need stronger layouts, different types of balls. So that's kind of thing you have to learn on the fly too. But I'm probably going to end up experimenting and posting what I'm experimenting on with different balls and strategies and stuff. So that's it for the 2025 season. If there's anything you want to ask me about or comment on, good suggestions, I always take good advice, let me know, and I'll get back to practicing, posting videos about what I'm working on and why I'm working on stuff. And yeah, thanks for watching, thanks for following. Please hit the subscribe button and go watch some more videos. I'll put up a few up here towards the end of the video that you can go watch. That would really help me out. And yeah, see you in the next video. See you with more bowling content here on YouTube.